to the Max Effort Kitchen podcast. I am your host, Chef Matt. And like I was saying in the beginning, this is going to be a show. It's going to be a doozy. We're going to talk about the thing not a lot of people like to talk about, and we are going to move through some hard topics. Life is interesting because life has a way of showing us that we are not in control. And the idea of not being in control leaves us as humans in a way of feeling very unsettled, feeling sad, feeling mad, angry, happy, whatever you want to call it. Some people like to be out of control, but life is life, and we as humans can't do anything about the life that happens to us. But what we can do is we can figure out ways to combat the hard things, and not combat. I think combat's the wrong word. Let's say accept the hard things and move with the things that bring us joy. There's all kinds of levels of what life brings and where we are at in life, and levels of importance on what to pay attention to and what not to pay attention to. And I think we get caught up as humans, and I'm going to say we a lot because I'm in that mix of we. But as humans, we get caught up in the stupid bullshit of what happens in life, right? Like the hobbies that we do, the keyboard warriors, the bullshit that people put out online that is just a bunch of lies, right? And then you get caught up in it, and you start like talking about it, and then life hits you. Then real life happens, because that petty shit, that's not real life. There was an old friend that put out some real ignorant content yesterday, and it made me feel sad for him, and the way that it portrayed him as a person. I didn't feel bad. I just felt sad for him. It didn't portray well. It didn't represent him well, and there was a little bit of drama, and that's the petty shit I'm talking about, right? There's a little bit of drama around it, and I was part of that, and I was dwelling on it. And then I woke up this morning to a phone call of a childhood friend, someone I've been friends with since I was 14. Yeah. And he lost his son to a drunk driver last night. And it, in an instant, made me realize what real life is. And, being I don't know what he's going through. I know it's hard. And I'm going to leave him nameless, he knows who he is. And him and his family, I've known them for a long time, and I never got the chance to actually meet his son, but I got to meet one of his sons, and I know him as a person, and he has raised some really amazing kids. And to hear about what happened, it reminds me that life is bigger than that petty shit. It's bigger than that. And I just think that's really the best way to put it. We can sit here and, talk about our jobs and talk about, oh, we don't like this and we don't like that, or we can act like, we're, the drama on social media, or, in the weightlifting world, oh, who's lifting and how they're lifting, or, ooh, are they doping or not? Who gives a fuck about that, right? At the end of the day, that's a hobby, and that's all it is. So when real life happens, it really hits you to a point where you look at the other shit and you just feel bad, right? So, I got the call. I didn't pick up right away because I was in the bathroom. But anyways, that's another story. But and then I saw a text come through, and immediately, picked up the phone, called them, took a walk. And, there was one piece of advice that I had been given by kind of a mentor type person about what you do when somebody is going through a struggle of death. Because generally, there's nothing you can buy a person. There's nothing you can, you can't go fix anything. But the one thing you can do is you can be there for the person. And I heard a story about this, and the story went as of, his best friend's dad died, and everybody was calling him and being like, oh, I'm so sorry to hear about it, and this and that, and the friend called him and was like, listen, there's nothing much I can do about this right now, but I'll tell you what, I'm going to be here for you. So look out your window. And the friend was sitting in his car out, in front of his other friend's house. And he's like, you don't have to come out here. You don't have to see me. You don't have to do anything. But I just want you to know that I am here when you need me. And that right there, actually, I think I heard that on a podcast. And that was another podcast that I listened to. And that story, although I probably butchered it a little bit, and I think you got the meaning of it, that story is a lot of what you can do. I don't know the feeling of what it means to lose a child. I can't imagine. I would be devastated. And I know my good friend, I know, buddy, I know you're hurting. But I'm here for you. And I know there's other people that are here for you and your family. And so we gotta realize that, like, in these times of need, and this is what I told him, and this is not to boost myself at all, but this is just, you can't do anything in that moment. Feel the feelings. And he even said, I can't control this. Like, I want to go fix it, but I can't. Feel the feelings. Feel them. Don't hide them. I told him, don't be a man. Don't sit there and act like you got to be strong for everybody else. You let it go. Feel those feelings. And I said, just be you. Let the people around you, hold and support you. And you do the same to them, because, you have a family, you have a wife, you have kids that also are grieving, and to feel that grief. And the acceptance of death is where this is going. And the acceptance and understanding of why this happened will never be realized. But the acceptance of death and the process of life is something we cannot control. What we can control is the understanding on how to maneuver and move around it in a way that is going to be positive. And I'm not sitting over here telling you guys, be positive in this moment, keep your chin up. No. But there is a point in time, there are stages, there are elements of grief that you have to let happen. And I'll share with you, when my dad passed, my dad was my best friend. And I think I've talked about this many times, but my dad was my best friend. He took me away from my very not understanding of what it means to be a mother at a young age, and he took me on and he brought me into structure and life and a place in which I could choose my path and be successful, right? And I was young. I didn't understand that then. Grew up, just me and him. He was very frustrating and very difficult at times, but he was also, the only person I had. And he was my best man at my wedding. I'll tell you, people looked at me when they said, "Who's your best man?" I said, "My dad." And they're like, "Really?" But yeah, absolutely he was. He's the reason why I was getting married. I wanted to be like him. When, times got tough in my, small stint of drug-induced 20s, I'll never forget the phone call I got from him, which was, "Matt, I know what you're doing. I know what's going on. When you're ready, you call me." And sure as shit, I was ready. I called him and he picked me up within 3 hours. Threw my 3 trash bags full of clothes, because that's really all I had to my name at the time. It was like 11 o'clock in the morning by the time he got down there. Threw it in the car, got in the car and walked, and we drove up to Portland and never looked back from then. But that car ride was, now, I sit here and talk about it like, oh, he's my savior, but that car ride, one of the hardest car rides I've ever had. He didn't say more than probably 10 words to me. There's one thing I remember that he said to me, which was, "Matt, this is not going to be easy for you, and I am not here to make it easy." And at the time, I was a little like, fuck, what did I get myself into? I look back at it now, and it's the best thing that ever happened. Fast forward to 2017, Christmas Day. The man was not a man of timing. Christmas Day, sits us all down after dinner and presents and all that, and proceeds to tell us that he has been diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. Quite the blow. It was very interesting. The next year and a half, it was just a lot of okay, what's going on? How's this? Nothing. There was no real movement. And then September of 19, it started spreading. And when it started spreading fast. He was in the hospital within the first week of September. And they in and out of the hospital for about a month. And then they took him out of the hospital by November 15th to go into hospice. He was very adamant about passing at his own home with his family around him. And so my brother and I became his quote unquote hospice nurses with the direction of the actual hospice nurse. My younger brother would go in there at night, and I would go in there in the morning, or we would switch shifts, and we did things. We got him food. We just sat in the room with him. We talked to him. We played music for him. We, helped him out of his chair so he could try to go to the bathroom, which he was very constipated, and it just didn't happen. I remember once a day, it was like when my brother came, okay, well, we, one of us picked him up out of his bed, the other one changed the sheets, because he was pissing his bed. He was coming down to the last part of his life, and he was immobile. He was dying, and there was zero control that we could have on that. And, it was hard. It was really hard in the moment. And to be so out of control with someone you love is such a tender moment, you know? You want to build anger. No, not build anger. You want to use anger. You want to use anger as a way to protect yourself. Because control, the lack of control in life is attacking you. And that attack is something that you just can't, you got to weather. And so there were lots of nights where I just sat on the stairs and cried. And there was one thing I didn't do, which was I didn't lean on the people around me as much as I should have. I was trying to be a man. I was trying to be strong. I was trying to be strong and do it for everybody else, but I didn't. I did it for, it was, at the end of the day, it was one of the most difficult things I've gone through in life. And the day he passed, I remember it was a Saturday. I showed up in the morning, and the actual hospice nurse was there, and my brother was there, and his wife. And I start walking back in the room, and my brother walks out, and he looks at me, and he goes, "You need to talk to her." I said, "Okay." So I go in, and the hospice nurse looks at me and says, "Okay, today's the day," And he was incapacitated. He could murmur some stuff, and he didn't know what was really going on. And so I went in and kissed him on the forehead, told him I loved him. And, I let life happen. We hung out there for a little bit, and, I just kind of talked, and, he was being monitored. He was still alive. And my sister showed up, and a couple other family members came through to say goodbye. And it was a moment, it was a moment in time that you're so out of control that you just don't know what to do. And I didn't. So I just sat there, and I felt the emotions, and I felt the feelings, and let people, hug me, and was fairly guarded. And, I came straight from the gym, so I hadn't actually showered. So I looked at my brother, and I was like, "Hey," he was there for most of the night, and he was like, I need to change." And I said, "Well, so do I, kind of." And so my sister was like, "Why don't you guys go? Things will be fine." And no more than 10 minutes down the road, you get the phone call. He's gone. He left. Okay. Turn around, drive back. And the vast difference in emotions that I had from the time that I left that house to now, at the point in which I knew he was gone, were widely different. My brother acted in a way that he acted, which was, he was very angry, very angry, punching walls, throwing things, just couldn't do it. And everybody deals with it differently. I had a bit of relief that came upon my shoulders. I had a bit of sorrow, but relief. He was out of pain. He was gone. Life is still moving forward. My job is still there. My bills are still there. My family is still there. My kids are still there. My health, still there. The things that I have started, still there. Life doesn't stop. So what are you supposed to do in that moment of time when you are so out of control? And my best advice to it is you sit back and you feel the feelings. You feel the emotions. You give yourself grace and time to recover, to feel that it's okay. It's okay to be where you're at. If anybody judges you, fuck them. You know? I say it all the time. I was super fortunate that I had been surrounded by such amazing people. You know, my job, like, they could have fired me. They could have let me go. They could have said, you know what? We need you here. No. It was nothing but, Matt, you take the time you need. We got you. You know, family members were dealing with their own, when I say family members, I mean like siblings and my dad's wife. And, you know, they were dealing with their own. And so that came to a point where I had to, you know, pull away for a second and say, okay, I need to take care of myself. But I didn't do it. What did I do? I flexed my muscles. I said, I got this. I'm gonna take care of all you. I'm gonna be the person who runs the show at the funeral. I'm going to, you know, be here every day for my dad's wife. I'm going to, you know, do what I can to try to help my brother. You know, I'm going to stay in contact with everybody. I'm going to make sure that they're okay. And I just didn't take care of myself. And there's a moment when it hits you when you realize you didn't take care of yourself. And I remember the day that it hit me. It was after the funeral, you know, and I serviced the whole funeral. I did, you know, I mean, you know, by whatever, the person who runs the front and talking and all that stuff. And yeah, it was a good thing for me to do. In the moment, I was trying to be strong. I look back at it now and I'm like, I shouldn't have done that. But I'm thankful I had the opportunity to. And, you know, I just remember the day that it hit me that, like, well, everything's done. The funeral's done. Relatives are gone. Friends that were supporting you are back to their lives. What the fuck do I do now? Let me tell you, that one of the most alone feelings that I felt ever. And I mean, I couldn't go, 20 minutes in the day without just crying, breaking down crying, doing the dishes crying. Couldn't listen to music. I couldn't watch TV. I tried watching The Office and this, nope, crying. I tried going to the gym, couldn't do it. Didn't want to be in public and crying because, you know. But if there's one thing I learned from that situation is that life keeps moving forward. And we have no control over what happens. And so I just kept on moving forward, one small step at a time. And so, and you know, each day was just a little bit better. I think I took like a week off of work, you know, and that was mainly to make sure family members, again, doing stuff for other people, make sure family members were, you know, got to where they needed to be. And I think the last couple of days was just about me. And I spent some time with my wife and my kids, and it was like hunker down time, you know. It was just staying in, trying to watch movies, staying, you know, comfy clothes. I think I ordered way too much Uber Eats that week because, you know, I wasn't going anywhere. But here we are in 2023, and I'm talking about it. And to me, that tells me what? One thing. Life moves forward. There's nothing we can do about death, but we can accept it. We can accept it, and we can accept it in the way that works for you. We can accept it in a way that makes you feel better. Fuck the rest. Fuck anybody else. Nobody, that doesn't matter. You got a family, so obviously, lean on your family. Your family is they love you, and they want to be there for you. And when somebody's life is taken from you like that, again, you have no control. Don't try to control the grieving process. Just let it happen. Let the feelings happen. And, move forward one step at a time. And that's all you need to do. It's really all you need to do. And in the big picture, life happens and death happens. Right? We're all on this earth for a good amount of time. And you hear people talking about like, oh, it's a short amount of time. It's not that short. It's actually pretty long, and we can optimize it. We're never going to be perfect because we don't know what life's going to throw at us, right? We're never going to be the people that are out there preaching, this is the way, or, believe in this God or whatever. Life is life. We don't know. There's not a soul on this earth. There's not a person on this earth that can tell me exactly what happens when we die with full-hearted understanding and factual evidence of what goes on, because nobody knows. It's good to have a belief. Don't get me wrong. It's good to believe that there's an afterlife. It's good to believe that this isn't the end. That is a tactic for positive forward progress, right? That's a tactic to not be scared of death. That's a tactic to accept it. And I'm all about that. And I think that everybody is going to have their own understanding and feel for what happens. And that's okay. You have yours, I have mine. Let's move forward. Because life is going to. And we need to take the time to understand that in these moments where life happens, that whether it happens to us directly or people we care about, that you need to let it happen. You need to be there for the people you love. You need to support people. But you also need to support yourself, and you need to love yourself. And know that there's nothing that you could have done to save that, because it's life. There was a lot of things that I tried to help me get through those times, right? And mind you, I lost, and I giggle about it now, but like in 2019, I lost two grandmothers, one grandfather, and my dad. So it was a rough go that year. And I look back at it now, and it was right before COVID, and I'm like, man, I couldn't imagine, all of them going through that. And then passing during that time. I mean, come on. In a way that was a blessing. But like, it was a rough year. And I think I had to find things that were not people coping mechanisms that were positive. One of the things I found, not found, but I reinvigorated was weightlifting, and that's why it's so important in my life, is because it was one of my pillars when my dad passed. And, when 2019 happened, let's just say that. But something else I found, and I've always known about this gentleman, but his name is Alan Watts. You might have heard me quote him. I'm sure that a lot of people know who he is. He's a philosopher. He passed in the 70s, I think. But he has a very invigorating way of explaining things. And when I mean by invigorating, I mean like he is, it's tough. He gives you a simple way. He invokes thought. He makes you think with his words. He's not telling you to think about it. He's just saying things that make you think. And so there was a point, I think, in the last like week or so of my dad's life that I had to stop. I had to stop like a couple blocks before his house, pull over on the side of the road. I did some meditation, some breathing things, and I listened to this. It's a quick little blurb he has about accepting life and acceptance of death. And I'm not going to sit there and be like, oh, this got me through it, because a lot of times I just started crying. But I listened to it for probably a month straight, even after he passed. And so I could probably recite it, but I'm not going to try to recite it, and I'm going to play it for you guys. So bear with me while I get it queued up here. But this really helped me. And it has nothing to do with a belief system or religion or, God or, not God. Whatever you believe in, this is, they're just words. I'm not like projecting anything. So, let's see.
There really isn't anything radically wrong with being sick or with dying. Who said you're supposed to survive? Who gave you the idea that it's a gas to go on and on and on? And we can't say that it's a good thing for everything to go on living from the very simple demonstration that if we enable everybody to go on living, we overcrowd ourselves. So therefore, one person who dies in a way is honorable because he's making room for others. We can also look further into it and see that if our death could be indefinitely postponed, we would not actually go on postponing it indefinitely. Because after a certain point, we would realize that that isn't the way in which we wanted to survive. Why else would we have children? Because children arrange for us to survive in another way. By, as it were, passing on a torch, so that you don't have to carry it all the time. There comes a point where you can give it up and say, now you work. It's a far more amusing arrangement for nature to continue the process of life through different individuals than it is always with the same individual. Because as each new individual approaches life, life is renewed. And one remembers how fascinating the most ordinary everyday things are to a child, because they see them all as marvelous, because they see them all in a way that is not related to survival and profit. When we get to thinking of everything in terms of survival and profit value, as we do, then the shapes of scratches on the floor cease to have magic. And most things, in fact, cease to have magic. So therefore, in the course of nature, once we have ceased to see magic in the world anymore, we are no longer fulfilling nature's game of being aware of itself. There's no point in it anymore. And so we die. And so something else comes to birth, which gets an entirely new view. It is not, therefore, natural for us to wish to prolong life indefinitely. But we live in a culture where it has been rubbed into us in every conceivable way that to die is a terrible thing. And that is a tremendous disease from which our culture in particular suffers.
Haven't heard that in a long time. So, take that for what you will. He makes a really good point. He makes a lot of really good points. And I'm going to leave you with that. I'm going to also leave you with Ricky, rest in peace. You're loved. Support your family. Look down on your family. Let them know you'll be okay. Marco, I love you. Things will be good. And I'll be checking in with you. So look forward to the future of Max Effort Kitchen, the podcast, the show. There's a lot of great things coming. So I hope everybody has a great weekend, has a great, safe Super Bowl weekend. Take a second and think about that drink you have before you get in that car. And take a second to hug your children. Tell them you love them. Hug your wife. Be grateful. Be thankful. And remember, food is love. Adios.